Now let's cover accessor and mutator methods, also known as get and set methods. Here we have two files. One is a value.java file and one is a main.java file. We can see that in the value.java file we of course have a value class, and we can see that we have one variable that we're initializing. It's a private integer called val. We can see we have a basic constructor here, and we take in the variable as an argument myval, and we set val to that value. In the main.java file, we can see we're creating an object called num, and we're utilizing that constructor to pass in the value 5, which will become val's value, of course. Now, let's look at an accessor method. Right here, number 1, that's an accessor method, this getVal method. We can see that it says public int getVal. And in the body of this method, we can see that all it's doing is it has one statement, and it's return val. That's simply what an accessor method is. An accessor method is a method that is used to return the value of a private variable in a class. So we learned earlier that any entity that is private in Java, such as this variable val, we cannot access it from other classes directly, like main.java. Like the main.java file. So what we'll have to do is utilize an accessor method or a get method, like this one right here, in order to return us a val, so that we can do something with its value. So here we can see that we're calling the accessor method, and we're doing a system.out.println, and we're calling num.getVal in order to get the value 5, as we saw earlier here, and we're printing that out to the console. Now let's look at mutator methods. In a similar way, since we cannot access val directly and set its value in other classes like the main class, what we'll have to do is use a method for that as well. So we have right here a public void setVal that takes the setVal method that takes a argument newVal, and then we set val to newVal. So instead of directly changing the value, which we cannot do in other files, we're calling the mutator method as seen right here, and we're doing num.setVal, and in parentheses we're giving the single argument of an integer as newVal, which comes over here, and then val gets set to newVal, so the new value of val is 8. That's a mutator method. Now thirdly, we also have something called a toString method. Now, toString methods, written exactly like this, are special methods in Java, which are used to print out a description of the variables involved when a system.out.println of any object is called. That may sound a bit complicated, but it's pretty simple. So over here, we can see that we're just calling system.out.println of just num. We're not calling the .getVal method. We're not doing anything. We're just calling num. So whenever this happens with any object, what Java does is it looks back at the class and it sees, okay, does this num, so which belongs to the value class, is there a toString method that exists? In this case, there is. And since there is a toString method, what happens is that Java just basically prints out whatever is returned in this return statement. So in this case, it says int val is, and then space, and then we're concatenating that with val's value, which, as we established earlier, it's 8. So it'll basically print out int val is 8.